Okay, so thank you everyone for joining this webinar on the tool for assessing the effects of local intersectoral action. I'm Liane Comeau, the Executive Director of IUHPE, and we've been working with the folks at the University of Montreal and the CACIS chair for some time now, and we're happy to give them the floor to present this tool that they've been working on and that they had translated into English. So we think that this tool is very relevant for our health promotion community. We all know that intersectoral action is critical and it's very important, but it's also quite tricky to pull off and to manage. And so the how we do that, I think, is tremendously important. And so it's really useful to have this kind of tool to help people along. And I think it's a very adaptable tool. It was developed locally here in Quebec, but it's one of these kind of global things where, you know, I think it can address similar challenges in various localities. So without further ado, I'll present our speakers. So we have Angèle Bilodeau from the School of Public Health at the University of Montreal, Marie-Pier Saint-Louis and Gillian Kranias from the Canada Research Chair in Community Approaches and Health Inequalities, or CACIS. And we also have Margaret McLoone from Sligo Institute of Technology in Ireland. She'll be moderating the question period. Now, the Sligo Institute of Technology also has 3 accredited courses on health promotion with IUHPE. So they're very involved with us as well. And if you want to put your questions as we go in the chat so that she can go and collect them and consolidate them as needed, and then she will manage that part of the webinar. Likewise, yes, so all questions in the chat, please, because we might be several people. We don't want everyone talking all at once. So if you can also make sure that you have your mics off and your cameras off as we go through the presentation, that would be great. So thank you, and I'll hand it to Marie-Pier to share the slides and get the webinar started. Thank you.
Should I start, Marie-Pier?
We can't hear Marie-Pier.
Yeah, I have some technical problem. Just hold on. I'm gonna get to it. Okay.
Okay. And on the technical problem, I'm also just curious. I'm going to. Can we make Angèle one of the co-hosts so that she might show up in the main screen? Shall I get us going then? Welcome everyone. Sorry. I'd like to start with a land acknowledgement, and I live in Toronto and my colleagues are in Montreal. Both are within the Dish with One Spoon territories. The Dish with One Spoon is a treaty between the Anishinaabe, Mississauga, the Haudenosaunee that bound them to share the territory and protect the land. Subsequent Indigenous nations and peoples, Europeans, and all newcomers have been invited into this treaty in the spirit of peace, friendship, and respect. So our webinar today, we're going to be sharing an introduction to the tool, exploring ways to use the tool, and then we'll have time for questions and dialogues. There's 2 words that we're using that we just wanted to clarify, and as we're working internationally, they might be more familiar with those outside of English Canada, which is where I'm from. So one is we often make reference to the term actor, which is very common in Quebec as usage for what in English Canada we tend to call stakeholders. So an actor is a participant in an action or process. And we also, it was mentioned earlier, the language of intersectoral. We also recognize that a lot of other words are used to talk about similar work, cross-sector, multi-sector, multi-stakeholder, etc. So with that, we'll move on to our presentation. So the research behind this tool was guided by questions from grassroots action, and it links processes and effects of intersectoral action in living environments. The method is based on case studies in 3 neighborhood tables in Montreal between 2011 and 2016. And there was real-time documentation of the progress of those intersectoral action tables towards their observable transformations in the local living environments. The development was a multi-step process. It involved 4 workshops initially, then prototyping and testing of the tool, moving the tool online, and a launch through a webinar with Communagir, which is the Quebec partner on the development of the tool. Next slide. Yeah, so here, this gives you a bit of an idea of just the number of different actors / stakeholders involved in the development of this tool, very much an academic community partnership. So today we have with us the researchers from University of Montreal and also practitioners from Communagir, as I noted earlier, was the host in the nonprofit sector. And there's also a coalition of neighborhood tables, La Coalition de Tables de Quartier in Montreal, which is a key partner. Now, in terms of the process for translating the tool into English, the French tool was launched in October of 2019, and the next month we began work on the English translation. That's when I became involved, as well as Tamarack, who was the lead organization on the English translation. Translation was also multi-step and began with an initial translation by a professional translator, then a meeting among bilingual experts on intersectoral action from Anglophone communities. Those people reviewed and we adapted the translation together. Finally, a pretest was made with Anglophone practitioners. And after final edits, the English tool was launched in December of last year. So it took us a year for that process to do a full translation adaptation to English Canada. So Marie-Pier, why did you invest all that time and energy in a translation to English?
Yeah. Following the launch in French, neighborhood tables in the West Island of Montreal showed an interest in translation. Many actors speak English in that part of Montreal. So in November 2019, we hired the translator, and like the production in French, it was important for us to have a tool adapt to the use of practitioners. So we therefore worked very closely with bilingual experts and practitioners.
Exactly. And we do find by doing this collaborative translation that also sets us up well for dissemination afterwards. I wanted to add that in. So Marie-Pier now is going to show us online what the tool looks like and give us a high-level tour before we get to details.
Yeah, we choose to organize the information into 3 modules. Each module has its function. Module 1 aims to taking ownership of the foundations of the tool. Module 2 aims to mapping the key events of the project and translating them into a chain of transitional outcomes. And Module 3 aims to diagramming a project chain of transitional outcomes, identifying what has been learned and reinvesting it in the action. So in Module 1, it includes a visual presentation in Prezi format with audio example from the experience of neighborhood tables in Montreal. Gillian, in Module 1, we talk about the theory behind the tool. Can you explain us a little bit more about the foundation of the tool?
Yes, I'll move us there, and then after we'll bring Angèle in to talk in detail. So the key research findings include that local intersectoral action in the area of social development leads to tangible, material, and social transformations in living environments. And these transformations affect the availability and accessibility within those environments of resources that promote health and well-being. The transformations correspond as well to local culture, local history, and local needs. Marie-Pier, can you share an example of how this happens and how it reflects the local context?
Yes, in the intersectoral committee, the actors work together to improve a community food market, for example. They find refrigeration equipment, succeed to expanded opening hours. They also developed a cultural and educational program. This is what we think of when we talk about the tangible transformation in living environments.
Thank you. So I think for most of us health promoters, the last finding wasn't news per se, but this is the one where the tool gets really interesting and practical for us in this field. And that is that amidst that process, the researchers found that there are 12 transitional outcomes, and those transitional outcomes mark the progress of action towards its effects. So the work as it moves forward we can notice these 12 transitional outcomes that happen along the way. So the tool allows us then to use these transitional outcomes from the research as reference points when we do evaluation and when we strategize with those intersectoral tables. So a little bit more detail here. What is a transitional outcome? It's an observable indication of action as it occurs. They represent events that mark the progress of action towards its effects. And importantly, these are types. It's 12 types of transitional outcomes. It's not 12 steps. So although there are 12, it's not a linear passage through the 12. They are markers along the road to change, but they are not milestones. They will show up in different ways, again, reflecting that local context that the first finding pointed to. And so it's these tools that then were, these outcomes that were then brought into the tool to bring it to life and to create something very practical and informative and reflective for networks. So the transitional outcomes also relate to 3 areas of intersectoral action. So before we get into looking at each of the 12 in detail, we just want to give you a sense of where they situate in relation to these 3 areas. And again, I think that most of us will recognize these areas of intersectoral action. There's network setup and governance, where there's network creation and adoption of network governance structures and rules, as well as resolution of controversies. Then in the area of self-representing and influencing others, we have production, placement, activation, and strengthening of intermediaries. And we're going to talk about intermediaries again in a moment, what they mean. Representation by spokesperson also, and strengthening of spokespersons. And finally, in the area of aligning necessary actors and resources, resource acquisition and the commitment of decision makers, as well as the alignment of interest actors and networks. Marie-Pier, have you put the link into the chat to this particular infographic? I know we do have it. We'll be putting it up at some point. Let us know.
Yeah, I'm gonna put all the link at the end because I'm using already my 2.
Oh, okay. Well, I can do that.
But okay. If you can, like when Angèle is speaking, putting
just
some
move
link.
along, and I'll just do that now. It might be cryptic. It won't have an intro, but it is there because we are continuing to show elements of this rendition of the work. Okay. So now we're going to move on and talk about each of these 12 transitional outcomes. And Angèle's going to join me in this. So our pattern through here is I will be reading through them, and then the ones that have stars we feel are particularly unique to this work. And so Angèle will come and provide more depth of explanation. So again, as I noted earlier, 12 transitional outcomes were identified, and they relate to those 3 domains. And this is the first domain area of network setup and governance. We have network creation, which is establishment of linkages between heterogeneous social actors and non-human entities, which include knowledge, reports, policies, technologies, and funding, and includes setting them into motion in projects. Also, number 2, the adoption of networks governance structures and rules includes the adoption of methods for collective functioning within a network to regulate participation and decision-making processes. And finally, in this area, the resolution of controversies, which is the identification and elaboration of solutions in the case of controversies that prevent actors from cooperating. So now I'd like to invite Angèle to speak to us about network creation, and following that about the resolution of controversy.
Thank you, Gillian. Now, we will talk about creation and ongoing construction of socio-technical networks. Here we focus on non-human entities in socio-technical networks. That's to say, assembling and bringing together social actors with non-human entities such as knowledge, rules, laws, policies, programs, technology, and financing to address the situation. It's why we talk about socio-technical networks, because we have social actors and all others material entities which are brought together to address a situation. So creation of socio-technical networks means setting them into motion and engaging them in roles following negotiation as a part of a collective project to achieve goals. It's important to have in mind that socio-technical networks are ongoing construction, because during the process, some social actors withdraw, other actors or non-human entities such as alloys are added to the network, and they introduce new strategies, new ideas, new knowledge on the situation. So this changes the course of action. So socio-technical network and project influence each other in the course of action. And now about controversy. What is a controversy? So it's a confrontation of competing ideas on the same issue among the actors in the network. It is an arguing discussion on a situation, a problem, a phenomenon, a course of action. And it is not just a disagreement, example about fund management or about work organization. And what can we do to deal with controversy? So four ways to deal with. First, shifting actors' position via deliberation, explanation, and confrontation of differing positions. Also, by the addition of relevant actors, introducing new knowledge and resources. And three, by strengthening certain ties and dropping others. So engagement of new actors and withdrawal of others. And the last one, development of stronger solutions, enabling actors to improve their cooperation. And now Gillian for the second group.
Thank you. Next slide. Okay, so these are all related to the action area of self-representing and influencing others. We have production of intermediaries, which is the expression of convergent ideas and positions, including priorities, projects, solutions in a material form, such as plans, reports, and briefs. Number 5, the placement of those intermediaries, introducing intermediaries into other networks, to decision makers, to media, or into other intermediaries, for example, when something is introduced into a brief. Number 6, activation of those intermediaries, the promotion and use of intermediaries by strategic actors or networks, which carries us nicely into the representation by spokespersons, number 7. And these are action statements to communicate positions, generate interest, or influence the position and commitment of other strategic actors or networks. And number 8, related to that, the strengthening of spokesperson and intermediaries. The reinforcement of the legitimacy and credibility of spokespersons and the intermediaries they convey to ensure that they are better recognized by the populations and groups on whose behalf they speak and taken into consideration by strategic actors. And now I'll invite Angèle to speak to number 4, the production of intermediaries, and number 7, about spokesperson.
Yeah, I will begin with spokesperson. Spokesperson represent and speak on behalf of a collaborative group. They are an integral part of what makes a collaborative exist, endure or decline. Without spokesperson, the network cannot exist in the public space. The strength of spokesperson is based on 2 elements: their legitimacy, which arise from the position they occupy, which confers them recognition by others. For example, an intersectoral body coordinator. Second element, their credibility, which is granted to them by the value that others place on the information they convey and their mediation skills. So spokespersons use a variety of tools to contribute to their representations, and these tools act as intermediaries between the actors. It's why we talk about intermediaries, because they act between, in making relation between actors. So intermediaries are material or virtual tools, such as plans, reports, briefs, that gather and present the shared ideas of the collaborative. The tools communicate these ideas to other actors, or other networks of interest that the collaborative wish to address. These intermediaries materialize collaboration because they circulate among actors, putting them in contact with each other. They materialize actors' ideas and projects. They stabilize agreement. When the project is written, this project is more stable. And these intermediaries connect actors with other actors, other networks. So intermediaries are produced, they are placed, introduced into other network or decision makers, and they are activated and used by other actors outside of the initial network. Gillian?
Yeah, thank you. So now we're moving to the third action area, which is aligning necessary actors and resources. These are the final ones for the 12. We have the alignment of interests and movement of actors, which is convergence of interests, position shifts, engagement of actors in new roles, transformations in power relationships that promote collective action. Number 10, resource acquisition, which involves harnessing of necessary resources, including funding, labor, expertise, and technical support for the network's operation and achievement of its goals. Number 11, the expansion and strengthening of networks and their projects involves the recruitment of new actors, addition of non-human entities, again, strengthening relationships within a network or between networks, strengthening or expansion of the projects supported by these networks. And the 12th is the commitment of decision makers in achieving change, commitment of actors holding the reins of decision making and action, whether inside or outside a network. And now Angèle will speak to the alignment of interests, movement of actors.
Yeah, I will talk about the alignment of interest in a collective. So this alignment of interest is the base of collective action. it is done by the movement of actors. The basic idea is that there is no possible progress in the collective action if all actors of a network remain on the same position. Movements are accomplished by two ways: the negotiation of mutual concessions, often with the help of a mediator, and also by learning through the exchange of ideas and the confrontation of viewpoints. So these interaction and mediations make actors converging toward collective problem definition and problem solving, negotiating shared interests, engaging in new role, and fourth, mobilizing a critical mass of actors in common projects. So we see that mediator is a central actor. So actor movements are managed by mediators. Their work creates new connection that lead to change a network in the project. So mediators are social actors whose action transform networks. Gillian?
Thank you, Angèle. I was just thoroughly listening. That was just, I love this theory. It's so helpful to me in the work because I think so many of us in health promotion play those mediation roles.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're now moving to a new section. Thank you, Angèle, for all of that depth of insight into the research and the theory. So module 2, Marie-Pier is now going to present that, and we're moving into the action side.
Thanks, Gillian. Module 2 includes a facilitator guide that allows you to identify the major events of the project, but also to link those events to the 12 transitional outcomes. So module 2 also includes additional documents which facilitate the realization of the workshop. For instance, you will find an invitation letter and some facilitation material within the module 2. In the guide, there's an agenda proposal to draw the missing events of the project and to link them to the transitional outcomes. In step 2, for example, you will, in step, la flèche doesn't work. Okay. In step 2, we suggest that the group take a moment to look at the foundations of the tool and become familiar with the terms. Same kind of information that we got from Angèle. So before the meeting, the coordinator or a coordinating committee will have to identify some significant events to facilitate the workshop. The third step aims to validate and improve the project story. And after identifying the most significant events, the workshop participant will link the significant events with transitional outcomes in step 4. So here's an example of the workshop. Like I said, there is preparatory work before the workshop, such as putting together a banner with the highlights of the project. That step can be done by the coordinator or a committee, coordinator committee. So that's the picture at the top. And the workshop allows you to complete the story and to link the events to the transitional outcomes. So like you can see in the picture at the bottom. Module 3 aims to gain an overall view of the project's impact and capture learnings in order to reinvest them in action. So in number 3, you will find a timeline template, a diagram of the project chain of transitional outcomes, and also a question grid to draw out the lesson and reinvest them in action. Here's a screen view of the timeline. It makes it possible to keep a track of and to transcribe the project story in table form. The columns are year, month, event, events impact, transitional outcomes 1, transitional outcomes 2. Like you can see, there's 2 columns for transitional outcomes because sometimes there's more than one who can be associated to an event. The diagram, on the other hand, is the product of the research. This is the diagram that was presented at the end of the case study during the research. So this template can be completed to capture a chain of transitional outcomes on a single page. In each ovals, there's a transitional outcomes. One come to append the event of the transitional outcomes, so as to reconstruct the chain of transitional outcomes. And here's an example of a complete diagram. It shows a project for modifying bus service in a remote neighborhood in Montreal. So first of all, the Community Intersectoral Committee held a forum on local social development to identify priorities for local action, which result in a document of strategic direction. So that's the number 1 here. My arrow doesn't work. Whoa. So, but you can see the number 1 in purple. So as a transitional outcomes, they have produced an intermediary. To achieve those objectives included in the document, the committee set up a subcommittee for access the fruit and vegetables. So event number 2 in purple, you can see it on the diagram. So as the transitional outcomes, they created a network. So it goes on until number 9 at the bottom, when the City Transit Commission committed to changing the bus number 30, so event 9, which is associated with the following transitional outcomes: commitment of decision makers and achieving change, who bring who succeed to make the change for the bus, the number 3 bus route. So in module 3, there is also a grid of questions that allows a learning lesson from action. So retrospective inside and to reinvest the learning in action. So prospective inside. There is also a question that relate to each of the transitional outcomes. So like you can see, it's not exactly the grid that you find in module 3, but here's some example of question that you will find in the grid. So it helps to understand how each transitional outcomes has been mobilized to achieve effects and to think of avenues to better use them in order to achieve expected objective. As it is taught out in the tool, it can be the subject of a second workshop in order to take a reflective look at the diagram. However, actor who has been used the tool so far find the great interest in the grid. For some, the grid will be the gateway to experimenting with the tool and observing that the transitional outcomes is not mobilized. They will refer to the theory in Module 1. So they started by Module 3 instead of Module 1. So the tool is a proposal for a process based on theoretical knowledge to assess the effects of the intersectoral action, but it can be used different ways. For example, Sonia Racine from Communagir produced that diagram, who's different than the one in the tool, but helps to see the chain of transitional outcomes on a page. Here's another example. With the Montreal neighborhood table, I use transitional outcomes to monitor an action, and we represent the result in the form of a Socratic wheel. Like you can see, there's point closer from the middle. They represent the transitional outcomes where the least mobilized. But it's important to understand that action to achieve result doesn't need to mobilize all transitional outcomes, but this visual make it easy to see the strengths and the weaknesses and to open up a dialogue to find promising avenues for achieving the desired effects. Gillian, when do Gillian, I will let you keep going.
Thank you. Yeah. I just love that last section because I'm a heavy duty practitioner who loves working with these academics at the same time, but there's so many options. So hopefully you find an entry point there into this incredible tool and research. So this is our last slide. I just want to pass the final word to Angèle and ask you, Angèle, sort of in summary, when can we use this tool? Oh, that's strange. I can't hear you, Angèle, even though you don't appear to be on mute. Oh, you have a hidden mute.
Excuse me.
Okay.
Excuse me. So I was saying that we can use this tool at any time to support collective action and to support collective reflection or evaluation on our action. So if you use the diagram, mostly you are in a retrospective way. But when you use a dashboard or Socratic wheel or something else, you are most in a prospective way. That's to say, you have a tool to ask you question and to help you to use the answer to go forward in your action. Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Angèle. So that's the end of our presentation, and I'm passing the moderation back to our main host for question and answer. Margaret, thank you.
Thank you, Gillian. Thank you, Angeline, Marie-Pier. I suppose for me, I'm a little bit like you, Gillian. I like the steps and the processes and to see it, stepped out that way. So I thought that was really, really interesting. I might just take a couple of questions if that's okay. Laurie was just asking near the start of the presentation, Angeline and Marie-Pier and Gillian, did complex systems thinking inform this work?
I think so, yeah. Because we are not in a linear model. We are in a circular model. We can go back and go front. And when we are in complex system, we are in a system with an interaction with the context. And this tool is really good to capture all what happened between actors and their environment. Yeah, I think so.
I liked actually, because I had taken notes that you had said at the very start, they're not steps, they're types. And I thought that was really good.
So we have not the linear steps, we have a process.
Yes.
Yeah,
we have loops.
Exactly, and to speak to that, some of us may have the experience often of communities we work with. We're so trained to think of, we're taught to work in steps, right? And we're working in complex ways, and so bringing that difference across. I think when Angèle first spoke of that, she used a metaphor in French, but that really helped me grasp it in a new way, and made me even more excited about how we could bring it to people. So I used a metaphor of, because the French one didn't work in English, but of a deck of cards, you know, the 12 are like, you can play them differently at different moments, and then all these tools allow for collective reflection to decide collaboratively which you want to play and what might have been neglected or forgotten, or what might be strongest in your local context.
Yeah, the only aspect which is a linear aspect is the timeline. So we have the timeline and we have many events, but these events are not in a linear way.
Or the same time periods. Some periods could be very long and some periods could be very short on the different outcomes. Yes. And
actors can make again the same transitory outcome another time, and they may go back, they may have success, or they may fail to obtain some transitional outcomes. So they have to come back, and all is on a timeline, but all is with loops.
Yes. Yes. And like Gillian, you say, we have to play our cards right, is the way we could adapt that card analogy. I just have another question from Gemma, and she was asking, are there examples of this being applied to pre-existing stakeholders, stakeholder relationships, and what were the challenges when compared to establishing new stakeholder groups? So I suppose there's two questions there, really. So have you examples of this being applied to pre-existing stakeholder relationships? And then is there a difference when you don't have a relationship with the stakeholders beforehand?
Actually, I don't know if I understand well the questions, but we all, the group with who we worked the tool with, or the research, were pre-existing stakeholder relationship already. So like they were already together for like years working together. So when we started to look at their story, they had many they were mature, like they had many events to talk about, and but also we had a relationship with them because we knew them. They already knew like the work of Angèle. So like that's the reason why they decide to work with the transitional outcomes at first. So that was the first group with who we work. But now, since the tool is online for like a year also in around like in French, so like there's new groups who start using the tool that we don't know, and we don't know all the experience the tool, because they do it by themselves. But the one that we work with for the first step of the research, they were like we knew them, and they already like they had the accomplishment already.
Yes. So, and would you see there are challenges if they were new stakeholders with no relationship before?
There is always new stakeholders in the network, because stakeholders, the network is moving across the action, and the network is always in transformation. So there is new and there is old stakeholders in the network.
And I would say that there's, for example, a group with who we worked that we use the transitional outcomes, and when we did their diagram, we realized that they were always coming back to some transitional outcomes, but there was one wasn't mobilized, was the commitment of decision makers and in achieving change. So what they decided to do is to take action to go see the city and like work with the actors from the city and involve them in their network. So sometimes the tool tells us to go to new actors also.
Yes, and new relationships.
Yeah.
Can I just ask as well, just when you were speaking, could you explain socio-technical networks, please?
Socio-technical networks, yeah. Socio, it's easy, social actors, it's a human. So our organization, it is mostly organization, because when we have a coalition, it's not just people one by one, it is organization, community-based organization or institution such as municipalities or school or health system. So these are organization, and technical, it's about material things. People in a network cannot transform living community, living condition without material. We cannot make a public garden if we have not the ground, if we have not the tool and the vegetable and so water and anything else. And we need also the competence training and knowledge. And so there is also some laws and program. And the law is a new entities which happen in a network, and this entity can change all the process because it changed the rules. So the law is a technical entity, it is not a human. So that's the meaning of socio-technical network. If people want to know about this notion, they can go on actor network theory. If you Google actor network theory, we will find all about Bruno Latour, Michel Calon, which are the main authors of this theory, and all is now in English on the net. Yeah.
Thank you, Angèle. The spokesperson has a very important role in this. So have you any advice just on selecting spokespersons if you were in an organization, because they have such a key role? And I presume if you have working with younger children or older adults, have you any advice on, I suppose, the right spokesperson for your organization in different...
Spokesperson grow in a network by interaction. They become larger. They become most important. They gain the trust. They gain credibility, and they become spokesperson. So it is not given first. It is given when we gain it. About any people, maybe a community organization, maybe a citizen, maybe a children, anyway, but spokesperson have to gain this status.
Thank you, Angèle. And I see Gillian says spokespersons grow in a network. I love the dynamic nature of how you represent the dynamics, Angèle. I think I don't think, have we any more questions that I missed? I think that is all the questions. On behalf of us all, I suppose, here in Ireland, thank you so much for hosting this webinar, because it's really useful to, see what's going on globally. And I suppose it's a different perspective for us to look at. So I really appreciate it, and I'm sure the attendees do as well. And I'll just hand you back. I think, Liane, do you want to finish up on the session if there's no more questions?
Yes, just reactivating my screen and my mic here. Sure. Well, yes, thank you so much. I put in a comment towards the end too, just to say that, I think one of the strengths here is really the flexibility of the approach, where it can absorb new events or new elements or new stakeholders. And it's very iterative in the sense that you can start in many different parts, and you can go in loops, as Angèle was saying. I think this also requires people to embrace complexity up to a point, but I think that a lot of people in health promotion do that already and very well. So I think that it's a very useful presentation, and thank you so much for the examples. I think it really helps it bring it to life as well. Does anyone else have any last comments or question? I don't see any.
Liane, can I just ask, at a practical level, acts for participants who are interested in reading more about the tool or accessing the tool? Have you any advice?
I think the folks, maybe one of the presenters could answer that. I don't know how much of it is available in English other than the tool itself. Maybe some links or references could be put into the chat.
We have articles published in journal in English. And this is on the tool. These references are on the tool, but we can put them online.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yes. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Did you put the link for the tool?
Oh, did I put I only put the link. Sorry, I only put the link for the. I'm sorry.
Okay.
For that one infographic
is,
we were talking about. The tool has it's documents and documents. There's plenty in English, including the main. So there is research that was published in peer-reviewed literature in French, but they also when they were working in French, they were just wanted to disseminate at the community level and in the practitioner circles, and so there is a whole, like I'd call it academic kind of article about the theory as well, which is on the website there. So you'll find it there. So it's sort of 5 pages explaining the theoretical background. And then, of course, all of the beautiful slides that we saw of different entry points to using it, those are all available as well on the link that Marie-Pier just shared.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah, and we work with an organization who's called Tamarack in English, who's well known in the English part of Canada. So the tool can be accessed by their website. That's the link I just put there.
We see the link. Good. Thank you, Marie-Pier. I also wanted to say a quick word of thank you to everyone from Ireland who joined us. Our Irish accreditation, our national accreditation organization did some good promotion of the event. So it's nice to have a bit of an international presence here. And Margaret, of course, who joined, who volunteered to answer, to moderate the question period. So thank you all for joining. Since we have 3 minutes left, I would like to say that The call for abstracts is open for our Montreal conference in 2022, so completely unrelated, but I think I'll take the opportunity to promote our event a little bit. But the World Conference on Health Promotion taking place in Montreal in 1 year from now is open, so abstracts may be submitted, and the conference is planned as a hybrid conference. So whether or not you know already whether you'll be able to travel by then, you can still submit your stuff, your work. We're very eager to receive that. You have until mid-September, so the whole summer to summarize your research and send it on. I'll post the link in the chat as well for that. Okay. And I
hopefully
think
some people can travel, Liane.
Well, hopefully, yes, we certainly hope so. But if they can't, it will still be accessible, and I think that's a good thing. So we hope it will be a different conference if it happens in that way, but I think it's good to branch out and innovate as we have to. Okay, all right. So do speakers want to stay on a few minutes just to sort of debrief and recap, and then we can all go? Okay. And everyone else, thank you again for attending. The video will be available on our YouTube channel, so we'll promote that link through our channels here at IUHPE, and I'm sure our partners can do the same, so that, you know, if you have colleagues who couldn't attend but wanted to, you can share that with them as well. It will be there for a long time. And anybody, is the presentation also going to be available? Are you sharing that at all?
Yes, we can share it. I'm just gonna change. I saw that like it moves, some stuff move like the stars, and but we can share it, no problem.
Okay.
So I'm gonna send it to you by the end of the day.
Okay. Thanks all.